So the LitBuzz is so excited to have Melissa Roehrich with us today as the official media partner of Romantasy BookCon and Moonlight Masquerade, hosted by Fantasy Fabled Events in Orlando in October 2024. We have the pleasure of highlighting sponsoring authors as yourself. So for readers who have not yet had the pleasure to read your books or to meet you, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you write.
So yeah, like you said, I'm Melissa Roehrich, and I live on a little farm in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota with my husband and three boys, where we homeschool, and I do this writing thing. Um, and I write dark fantasy romance. It was came out of the blue. It was something that I've always liked to write, and I started writing again when we moved here out of necessity, which we can talk about a little later, for my mental health necessity, and never expected it to become what it is. And here I am a few years later.
So you actually hit on so many points that I do want to
Yeah,
talk about. I have a whole list of questions. So
perfect.
we'll start at the beginning. So I am a new reader of yours as well. When this
Okay.
opportunity came up, I got Reign of Shadows and Endings so that I had some feel for you. So I haven't read
Yeah.
any of the Lady of Darkness series. So let's start on that one since I'm unfamiliar with it as well. But I tell you, after reading your first book, I'm like, okay, I need to. So tell us about Lady of
Amazing.
Darkness, and then we can go into the legacy.
Yeah, so Lady of Darkness, it was the first series. It's a complete series. There's 5 books in that one. And that started, I mean, I was in a really rough point. I was in a really rough point in my life, and it was kind of a survival thing because mental health is super important to me. As if you've read Rain of Shadows and Endings, I'm hoping that came through, and you see that in the Darkness series as well. That was just one of those things that I felt really alone in what I was experiencing, and so I started writing because that's how I got all of my feelings out there, and I wanted other people to realize they're not alone either. Granted, you're not out fighting dragons and magical beings, but it's the whole escapism of putting yourself in there and realizing that there's others who are experiencing something, seeing yourself in that character. And so I started writing. I actually wrote the first 2 books at one time, and they got way too long. Obviously, if you I write thick books, and that's never going to change. It's just the way the way I am, and so we had to split it into 2. But it is about she's an assassin who has been kind of pushed to the side because she didn't want to follow the rules of um her assassin lord, and she has some sisters, and they were trying to protect children in their country, and finds some secrets as she goes. And it's a good found family, the mental health rep, as you go through, and just all kinds of secrets and lore that you won't discover as you go.
So this was later on, but yeah, let's delve into that because your the book that I've read is
Yeah.
very intense, and so from what I've read of the Lady of Darkness, it's also very intense.
Yep.
But it's it has redeeming reasons for that darkness, and you've shared that that's also a
Yeah.
personal experience. Talk a little bit more about that because I think that that's actually very, very uplifting and enlightening, even in a dark fantasy book.
Right. It is. And so, one of my things when I started writing that was like I said, I was in a dark place. Just real quick, we have 3 boys, and we had 2 more pregnancies after that. They were both girls. We lost them in late term, second trimester losses, and that's kind of Scarlet was one of them. Was one of the girls we named, which is the main character in the Lady of Darkness series. And so I was just processing all that grief, and grief is just one of those grief and trauma is one of those things where there's a quote by I think it's Johnny Cash, that says, "There's no going through it, but when you get to the other side, you come out as a different person." And I feel like when you're going through that, a lot of people are just waiting for you to go back to how you were, and you're never going to get there. You're going to be a different person, and that's okay. And that's kind of where I wanted one of those things that I highlight, and you'll see it throughout Darkness because there's a lot of side characters. Every time you go, every book adds a new POV, and that was intentional. I like a lot of side characters, and a lot of people will say like of them like the side characters more than the main, and that's fine. But they all have their own trauma and grief, and they all process it differently. And that's okay too, because everybody processes that differently. And in the end, that dark that you went through isn't always a bad thing. People, always say the darkness is, the depression is bad. And yeah, it's really hard to get through, but it's also not a bad thing because it shapes who you are on the other side. And that person's not a bad person that you come out on the other side of that with, type thing. And that was something that because there's questionable choices throughout by some of the characters. Well, all of them. I mean, all of them. You make questionable choices when you're in that dark place. You make questionable choices, and you have to deal with the consequences of those choices. It's not magically fixed, even though it's in a magical realm. Like, it's not just suddenly like, oh, everything's forgiven. There's consequences for those choices, and how those are handled within that grief and trauma was just really something that I wanted people to realize, that your journey is yours, and that's okay how that comes out on the other side. So that was my the whole thing in there. Is just one of those things of not feeling alone when you're going through all of that. So
I do think that your characters in that aspect, actually being in a fantasy world, though, have a very relatable quality. And just with humans, you were able to, like I said, I've only read the first book of the Legacy, but Tessa still, I mean, this ebb and flow of, decisions too. Some are good, some are bad, some are that she's making, not even just being impacted on her.
For sure.
How real is that?
Right. And Tessa was different. I will say the Legacy series is darker than the Darkness series. That's what I always say. They're very different vibes. Like, I warned my readers who read the Darkness series first, like, just know going into this one, it's very, like, it's still dark, but it's a different kind of darkness than what you experienced in the Darkness series. And Tessa she is the epitome of anxiety and depression and what you go through when you feel like you don't matter. Like, she's just the epitome of that, of just, I don't matter. So what do my decisions matter? And bouncing back and forth of trying to get to a better place and always being shoved back and never feeling like you're going to make it where you need to be. And I think I've had a lot of people, say the same thing. Like, I see myself in her in a way that I've never, and that's what I want. Like, that's what I want people to see, is someone that they can relate to and realize that I'm not okay. I'm not as alone as I think I am when I'm going through this. So
since I kind of got everybody ahead of it, give us the synopsis then of not only the Reign of Shadows and Endings, but of the Legacy series. Now, so you just have the one, book 2 is coming out in February. So, and also give us a little, maybe hint, do you have any idea how many books are going to be in the series?
I do. That one is 4 books. So I say to people, I write in different worlds, but it's all in one universe. So you see similar elements from the Darkness series. You'll see similar god names or similar magic systems, because that kind of all trickles through, because it's all in one universe, just different worlds throughout the news. Because we have, oh my God, I think I'm up to 9 series. There's 9 different series planned within the universe. So it's a big one. But yeah, Legacy will be 4. Probably one of the darkest ones in there. And it's a really I remember when I first told my alpha team about it, I was like, I don't know, because I started writing it for me, just one of those things that I needed to like get out. I actually wrote the first book between books 2 and 3 of the Darkness series, and I was like, I don't know if it's ever going to go anywhere. Like, I just needed to get some things out, and they read the first 25 chapters, and they were like, no, we're doing this one after Darkness. So it is a world that was, I would say, it was forgotten by the gods. It was a world designed for the Legacy, who are the descendants of the demigods. So a god and a mortal had a child. The descendants of those are the Legacy. The gods feared the Legacy becoming too powerful, so they basically created a world, shoved them all there, and was like, this is going to be your world. We're not going to interfere. We have nothing to do with this world. That's where they stay. And then the Fae are where they get their power from. Dog showed up, so I apologize if you hit the barking in there. So the Fae are there to basically serve the Legacy in this world, and the ruling families get direct sources, which is where Tessa comes in. She's chosen as a source for the Arius heir, who is the descent or the god of endings, death and ending. So she's there and never planned to be this person, because she was always told she was nothing, and suddenly she's this prominent figure and doesn't want to be there.
So It's you also write with a little bit of cliffhanger as a reader.
Oh
You
yeah,
love cliffhangers.
I love cliffhangers. Oh my gosh, it's gonna happen. I love the months of angst in between books. So yeah, they're always gonna
Okay, well,
gonna
that,
happen.
I'm glad that your next one's coming out in February because I don't know that I could handle much longer.
Fairly, fairly fast. Yeah.
So yeah, it is just, it is very intense, and I am very curious. And I'm not going to prod you on where this is
No, you're
going.
right.
I, I just there's some twists and turns. I have a feeling that you're throwing in on
Oh
this.
yeah. Yeah. This is one that
Definitely.
I've been excited about. Yeah. Yeah, I've been excited. And there's twists that won't come till like book three, probably. Not probably, they will. More in book three and like just knowing what's coming. And I see readers try to piece because there's some things like if you've read Darkness, you pick up on things a little quicker in Legacy because of the elements that carry over. So again, it's not something where you have to read Darkness to read the Legacy series, but you might pick up on a few things. So it's fun to see them trying to piece little things together and theories coming together as
Well,
they read through that. So.
I definitely, Darkness is on my list, but I have already decided it's not happening until after the holidays because
Holidays are
the way you write, it's going to be a reading marathon once I delve into that because that was really hard to put down the legacy book. I mean, you're constantly throwing things in there that people don't expect and things that you're like, oh my gosh, now what? I got to find out how this plays out, all of that. So that being said, what authors do you find that influence you in writing like
oh,
this? Or is
you
this just
know,
your imagination? Or do you feel like there's others that you've read that you
well,
grew up?
so right. I mean, I was always a bookworm. I remember reading a book a day, even in high school. Like it was just one of those things. And fantasy is always in that genre. So you grow up reading, because what is it, the Mortal Instruments and Percy Jackson, and I've always loved mythology and Greek lore and all of that. And so, and then I had kids, and you don't read as much when they're little. My kids are all close together. They're like the first two are 15 and a half months apart, and then there's 22 months. So they were all little at the same time. Um, and then I finally got back into reading. And so you read all of I mean, there's JLA and I'm looking at my bookshelf over here, like trying to find, of course, SJM, who's the big fantasy authors. But still, I still go back to, I loved fantasy growing up, and it was just all those elements of I've always loved magic, dragons, all the thing that's always Harry Potter. Oh my gosh, we just got back from Universal. We spent 2 days just in just in Harry Potter world. So all of those elements just came together. But I remember writing in high school. I had a notebook and I would write during class, write out stories even there. And some of those elements have even very different, very obviously they evolved writing, but even some of those little elements have shown up that I've started back then, and it was fun to just sprinkle them into the books as we went. So
But
yeah.
you're a very prolific writer. I mean, you started this series in 2020, the Darkness series.
Uh, Probably I'm trying to think of one because I wrote it and then we edited. Or
Um,
me, I rewrote and
it was
rewrote for
published,
probably two
right?
or 3 years. Yeah. And then eventually when you're writing, you get to a point where you're not even editing. You're just changing. You're just changing things at that point. And I remember one night I was reading it, going through it again for I don't know how many times because the first draft is very different from how it ended up. There's characters in the way it ended that were never in the first draft. But I remember my husband just being like, just publish it already. Like if it just do it. Like, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're gonna do this. And yeah, never imagined it would be what it is. Very grateful that it is,
So
but
you actually basically wrote the whole thing and then just published it out over time. Is that
we
what
did the first two books were written as one, Lady of Darkness and Lady of Shadows, and so those were able to. I published the first one in September of 2021, and then Lady of Shadows came out in December of 2021. But then the rest of them weren't written at that point. I knew where we were going, but they were written afterwards. So yeah,
that's fascinating? So what just a side
yeah.
little trivia. What are you reading now?
Oh, I'm not reading a lot. Well, people ask me that. We do this every month or every week in my reader group, but I'm at my screen's up here with my next book that I'm like on the deadline for Legacy 2. So I'm deep in finishing up those chapters. And when I'm writing, I can't read fantasy when I'm writing just because I don't want things to intermix. So I'm actually reading Love Redesigned by Laura Asher. She wrote the Dreamland Billionaires book. So that's what I read when I'm writing in writing mode. I go to like the billionaire romances and some like dark contemporary romances just so that I'm keeping things separate. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, so you homeschool and that you live on like a homestead in North Dakota.
Yep.
We actually homeschooled our children. They're all the youngest is in college, and we live on a working cattle ranch here in
I
Missouri.
love that.
So having that experience, how do you juggle it all?
Oh my
And
gosh.
writing and all that. How do you do
It's
it?
I don't know. No, my husband is amazing. He does a lot with the boys. Um, help keep the household. He knows when I'm in writing mode like this, he takes over dinners and all the things. And then actually 2 days a week, we have to go up to Bismarck, which is about an hour from 60 miles. And because I tutor at a dyslexia center there. There's 2 students that I have that I just adore. And then my son is in speech therapy. So it's just a lot of late nights and early mornings. That's when I write. We do the school during the morning and during the day. That's when I do things like this. And then my creativity time is best like at those late hours or like the early morning hours when everybody else is in bed. You can't. Yep. Yeah.
So, are you excited about Orlando and
Oh
the
yeah.
BookCon? You taking the boys and the husband too?
We are. Yes, we had just well, like we just went to Orlando in 2 weeks ago. Well, the middle of November. We were just there, and that was the boys' first trip. Like they hadn't been on a plane before. They hadn't been, so that they were super excited. Actually, they like narrated the whole landing of their first plane ride. It was amazing. And so they experienced Disney and all that for the first time. And yeah, we've already said, well, since I'm going, and Greg comes with all my events. My husband does. But we're like, well, I think we'll fly out a few days early, bring the boys, go back to their favorite parks and
What is
whatnot. And then yeah,
favorite thing
what's that?
what are they most excited to go back to?
Oh, Universal. Yeah. They're older now. They're 12, 11, and 9. So we did Disney first, knowing that the rides at Universal are a little more thrill rides. So I was like, once they experience those, I don't know that Disney's going to have quite the
Yeah.
feeler. We were right. We were right. Yeah.
Good planning on your part.
Yeah.
So, as an author, though, then what are you looking forward to at the BookCon?
They're all the authors. I mean, I've met several of them who are going to be there before, so it'll be fun to see them again. But I love to interact with the readers and just meet them all. As I interact with them on screens, Instagram comments or in messages, but it's always fun to put that face to the name and see them in person and just all the networking and just meeting everyone there and just that socializing there. So yeah.
So, where can the readers find you on social media? Where are you most active?
I would say Instagram is there, and I'm not as active. I'm on TikTok as well, but mainly Instagram. That's probably my main spot. And then I have a reader group on Facebook where that's the more interactive in there. We post daily. There's sneak peeks at what I'm writing. They get little snippets there and on the Discord, so they want to have that angsty cliffhanger just a little bit more and delve into that. I just posted one yesterday that had people second guessing all the things again. So that's my favorite thing to do to them.
You can find me on there now.
There you go.
So, where can people find your books? And in what format do you usually put them out in?
Yeah. So they are available. The ebooks on only Amazon because it is in Kindle Unlimited, so that has to be exclusive there. But the paperbacks and hardcovers are available wide. So anywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you can buy books. And then the audiobooks are coming. The first 3 Darkness audiobooks are out. The 4th one is in post-production, so it's coming. I'm just waiting for the files to be done. And I know the 5th one is recorded and has just gone into post-production. So those will be coming end of December, January. And then actually, we just got files, surprisingly, Reign of Shadows and Endings. I just got the audiobook files yesterday. So those are uploading. I wasn't expecting to have those quite yet, but here they are. So those are being uploaded probably in the next week or so. That audiobook will start popping up.
So, Darkness, you had Laura Horowitz. Yeah.
Yes, we love Laura. Laura also does Rain or Shadows and Endings. We are keeping, yeah. I met with Laura and I was like, we're just keeping you forever, like forever and ever. She's like, oh, I'm on board. So as long as she's on board, she will be all
that
the
is
people in all the books. Yeah, and
that's
then we had
exciting.
Gregory Salinas did fantastic with the Darkness series, and then Christian Leatherman is the male narrator for the Legacy series. So both of them absolutely fantastic.
That is. Well, this has just been amazing opportunity to talk with you, to, encourage everybody to go check you out that are going to Romantasy for sure. Um, and, we look forward to seeing the next book coming out. I'll have actually my review of book one up so that readers can, if they haven't delved into that one,
Thank you.
get
Yeah.
that. But then, hopefully that we'll be able to, review the rest of one. And like I said, I'm gonna dive into Darkness and
After the holidays, yeah.
the holidays for sure.
Oh,
Anyway, thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us. This has just been
thank
wonderful.
you so much for having me. I appreciate it so much.
And look for us down in Orlando, because there's going to be a
Absolutely.
whole bunch of us bees down there.
Oh, perfect. Oh, then I can meet you in person. Yes, that'll be great.
Excellent. Well, you have yourself a wonderful day. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.